Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mohammad Amirul Farhan bin Mohammad. So today I will present on my part is introduction on building maintenance. The process of ensuring that building and other assets have a nice look and perform at peak efficiency is known as maintenance. Lack of maintenance can lead to deterioration, degradation, and also decreased performance, affecting the health and safety of user, tenant, and other in that area. Next, buildings degrade at various speed and require various degree of maintenance depend on their design, quality of material and craftsmanship, purpose, and also the location. Also, no structure can ever be maintenance free. The quality of the design and craftsmanship can help to reduce the amount required to do the maintenance. Next slide is what maintenance can help. Maintenance can prevent the process of decay and degradation on the building. Second is maintain structure stability and also the safety. Third is prevent unnecessary damage from the weather or from the general usage. And fourth is optimize the performance. Fifth is also help inform plans of renovation, refurbishment, retrofitting or new buildings. Next is determine the cause of defect and also help prevent reoccurrence or repetition. And lastly is ensure continued compliance with statutory requirement. Next is type of maintenance. Maintenance can be classified. First is plant maintenance that carry out on regular basis such as a service lift and escalator and more. Second is preventive maintenance. It's carried out in order to keep something in working order or extend its life. Third is corrective maintenance. This involves repairing something that has broken, such as a window or gutter. Four is frontline maintenance. This involves maintaining something while it is still in use, such as repainting and decorating an occupied building. 5 is proactive maintenance. Maintenance work that is undertaken to avoid failures or to identify defect that could lead to failure. 6 is reliability-centered maintenance, a combination of maintenance strategy used to ensure a physical asset continue to function correctly. And lastly is scheduled maintenance. Preventive maintenance carried out in accordance with predetermined interval, number of operation, hour run, and so on. Lastly is common maintenance tasks can be done. First is interior painting and plastering. Second is landscaping and gardening. Third is paving repairing. 4 is window and door repairs. 5 is debris and rubbish removal and clearance. 6 is jet washing with chemical cleaning agent to remove fungus stain or mold. 7 is gutter clearance and repair. 8 is carpentry. 9 is lighting repair. 10 is replastering and plaster repair. 11 is rendering. 12 is window and door repairs. 13 is tiling. 14 is carpeting and flooring. 15 is plumbing. 16 is building service maintenance. 17 is repointing. 18 is removing paintwork. 19 is repairing cracking on linen wall. And lastly is repairing decayed floorboard.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mohammad Hafiy bin Nizaruddin, and today I'll be discussing about the description of our case study, which is the Hotel New World located in Singapore. Continuing on, the Hotel New World was previously called the Lian Yak Building, or sometimes called the Saranggun Hotel, and the building was completed in 1971. The building consisted of 6 levels above ground and 1 basement car park. The ground floor was occupied by a branch of the Industrial and Commercial Bank, and the second floor was occupied by a nightclub, which was called the Universal Neptune Nightclub. And the third until 6th floors was occupied by the rooms of the Hotel New World, which was exactly 67 rooms. The building first made headlines when a toxic carbon monoxide leak on 19th August 1975 rendered 35 hotel guests unconscious. Hotel New World collapsed on 15th March 1986 and was considered Singapore's first major civil disaster and one of the worst disasters in Singapore's post-war history. Based on this slide, this was the previous location of our case study, which was the location of the Hotel New World located in Singapore. This was based on OpenStreetMap and Google. And for the specific identification of our building, the name was Hotel New World, or its alternative name is Lian Yak Building or New Saranggun Hotel. The structure was generally a low-rise building, and the current status of it is demolished or destroyed. The structure material was concrete. The facade material was concrete, and the architectural type was modernism. The main usage of the building was commercial office, restaurant, or even a dance club. The location of the property based on its address as text is 201 Road 218842 Rochor in Central Region at Singapore. The technical data, however, is 21.34 meters in height. It had 6 floors above ground and 1 floor below ground. The construction of the building started in 1970 and ended in 1971, but unfortunately, the destruction ended in March 1986. That's it for me, Mohammad Irfan bin Nizaruddin, and thank you for listening to my part.
My name is Nur'Fatin Bt Mohd Isa. I'll be presenting on the history of the case study. There are a few sections that I will explain. The first one is the overview of the case study. Second, tracing the collapse. The third one, conducting the rescue. And number 4 is the investigation of the collapse. And lastly, the causes of the collapse. Overview of the case. Located at the junction of Owen Road and Saranggun Road, the Lian Yak Building, more commonly known as Hotel New World, collapsed on 15 March 1986 at approximately 11:15 a.m. The collapse of Hotel New World was considered Singapore's first major civil disaster and one of the worst disasters in Singapore's post-war history. The building was built between 1969 and 1971 and had 6 levels above ground and 1 basement car park. Tracing the collapse. On Saturday morning of 15 March 1986, the Hotel New World building suddenly gave way and collapsed with a loud thunder-like sound. 8 minutes after the collapse, the first 2 fire engines dispatched from the Central Fire Station on Hill Street arrived at the scene, followed by the police. Next is conducting the rescue. The Hotel New World rescue operation lasted for 5 days and involved more than 500 personnel from the Singapore Civil Defence Force, the former Singapore Fire Service, the Singapore Police Force, the Singapore Armed Forces, and a team of foreign experts. The rescue team decided on the tunneling method and enlisted the assistance of tunneling experts from Britain, Ireland, and Japan who were stationed in Singapore for the construction of the MRT subway. This resulted in a breakthrough in rescue operations. The investigation of the rescue. Soon after the disaster, investigations were conducted to determine the causes of the collapse. A series of tests and analyses were carried out on structural components such as building columns, beams, and foundation, and etc. Lastly is the causes of the collapse. The collapse could be attributed to structural faults as well as poor quality design and construction. There was no proper maintenance of the building, and structural defects were either ignored or superficially treated. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, I am Amirah Nasuha and I will present about the literature of building failures. Basically, the investigation was found out there are various additions made after the building initial construction has been done. The engineers and investigators had taken an approach to examine the blueprints and the building development plan of the Hotel New World. It was reported that the failure and cracks towards the columns of the building, which is they were stressed over the maximum limits to carry the building weight. The investigators and engineers also investigate the mixture of the concrete by using a microscope, and also had proven that there was a crack in the concrete mixture. It is known as micro cracks, which it caused the prone of danger towards the building support system. It has decreased the weight that supposedly to support the pillars. However, the owner of the building itself has met an additional heavy loads during the 15 years of building of time. On the other hand, the engineers has proven that the calculation regarding all these additional amounts of load were not contributed much towards the building collapse, as well as the investigation done finally found out that the dead load not accounted together in the original design plan that caused itself stress over the limits of building weight from the early stage. Summarizing the failure of its building structure, it caused by the fault of the engineers that to ensure and endorse the structural integrity as they failed to observe the significance of the dead loads during the construction stage was still ongoing. It happened to crack undoubtedly at the foundation and under design columns, which were the supporting elements when added huge heavy loads of the building. Then the overstress at the column parts were causing the micro cracks to the structures that made them powerless to support the additional weight in.
Okay, so now let's move on to negative effects on building, occupants and surrounding area. So on this part, I will tell you what really happened and what are the causes of the building to collapse and what happened to the occupants and what happened to the surrounding area during that tragedy. So let's begin with the first theory, where engineers and investigators had come up with a theory that there might be an interior explosion triggered by an incredible case or a terrorist assault. So engineers have taken steps to investigate the building's history, beginning with the gas leak incident in 1978. However, after the investigations were made, there were no evidence of an explosion that was located at the scene. So after this first theory and after thorough investigation, they quickly withdraw this theory from the equation, which leads us to the second theory. Okay, so on this second theory, engineers have speculated that this building might have a weak concrete composition or poor mixture of concrete, which caused them to fail quickly and collapse vertically. So they took samples of the debris from the site and took it to the lab for strength testing and consistency testing in order to pinpoint the exact reason. But surprisingly, the samples all met the international standards or criteria, which indicates that the material strength was not a problem in this disaster. So after this theory has investigated and has been checked, it was quickly withdrawn, and this was not the case for the building to collapse. So this had led us to the third theory. So on this third theory, engineers have studied the ground spotting the structure and discovered that it was once a swampy flat that had been drained, and the foundation and basement wall residue also were analysed, but however they have found no failure in the foundation. So investigators and engineers referred back to the blueprints and plans and realized that each failure were corresponded to different columns. As a result, the investigators hypothesized that columns collapse was because of they were stressed to the building's maximum limit. It was confirmed after a microscope was used to study the mixture of concrete. So as I explained in the last slide, which the collapse had something to do with the columns. So as we can see on this figure on the right hand, there are two columns, which is column 26 and column 32. So column 26 experienced micro cracks initially due to the overstress condition. So the other load propagated to another column, which is column 32 here, due to the weakening of the support structure in column 26. As a result, column 32 was unable to sustain the additional weight and micro cracks appeared. As a result of that, the large life and dead loads, other columns in the other corners gradually succumbed to the same problem, causing the entire structure to collapse. So as I said during the previous slide, there were micro cracks found. This is because they use the microscope to investigate all these tiny cracks which are not invisible to the human naked eye. So it has been found here, and thus explains the weight sustained by pillars had been lowered by these micro cracks, which eventually led to a slow progressive collapse. So heavy equipment that was not in the original design's blueprints was discovered in the rubble by the investigator. So eventually this has led to the conclusion that the building's owner has added extra weight during its 50 years of existence. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, for the additional weight that has been added to the building, engineers found out that this additional load fell into the life load category and had already been estimated, and the additional load added was not the proper reason for a failure. But finally, the engineers looked over their designs and calculations and found that the building's dead load had not been taken into account in the original design. So as I said, the additional weights added in this building is this. The first one is the vault, which carries 22 tons of weight. They will put in the bank, which is on the ground floor, as you can see, this box right here. And then furthermore, there were cooling towers added on the roof later, and then there were exterior layer on each floor that were fixed with heavy duty ceramics, which is these red lines in each floor, as you can see. So that was added, which caused around 50 tons of weight, and therefore this is the root cause of the tragedy which led to the building collapse. So with all that being said in the previous slide, this would further lead to the building to a total failure until it collapsed during the tragedy. This tragedy had affected the occupants and surrounding areas, where there were 17 individuals who were rescued during the 5-day rescue mission, but 33 lives were lost on that incident. So 33 building occupants were killed during that incident. And towards the surrounding areas, there had not much been negative effects towards it. It's just the places nearby had turned into a rescue operation base, which a rescue helicopter landing took place in a park nearby, and the operation base was on a local piano company.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and hi. My name is Mohammad Haiqel by Abdul. So I would like to present about the solution and recommendation of our case study. which is our case study, is the Hotel New World. We have identified that the cause for the Hotel New World collapse tragedy is due to the mistake of the structural engineer and draftsman. Second is the improper maintenance throughout its operation period, and lastly is the importance of government intervention. Thus, we have analysed some solution and recommendation to overcome this cause. Next, we go to the first solution and recommendation, which is the mistakes of the structural engineer and draftsman. The mistake of the structural engineer and draftsman is due to their attitude, where they will ignore the dead load during the design stage process. As recommended, before submitting to the Development and Building Control Division, any structural plan or calculation made by a professional engineer must be checked again by another professional engineer. Next, we go to the second solution, which is improper maintenance during operation periods. The owner of the construction should appoint the accredited checker and make sure that the accredited checker must be registered with the building authority. So it also recommended that the owner is responsible to make a building check for every 5 years by professional engineer to ensure the building safety during its operation. So lastly, our solution is the importance of government intervention. The building authority now have the right given by the legislation to refuse any building plan that they deem inappropriate, and by any time they can appoint an accredited checker to investigate any structural design that seem faulty. So this is important as one of the method to prevent corruption, misuse of individuals, authority, and malicious act during the construction process.
My name is Siti Amiera Binti Mohd. I'm going to present the last part, which is the conclusion. From this case study, we can conclude that the Hotel New World collapsed because of interior explosion and also the fault of the engineers. Hotel New World collapsed by an interior explosions besides the buildings because the buildings' weak concrete composition caused them to fall quickly and collapse vertically. Collapse of the building structure caused by the fault of the engineers because the engineers failed to ensure and endorse the structural integrity. They failed to observe the significance of the dead loads during the construction stage was still ongoing. So, just that for the conclusion. Thank you for watching.